Hey women of AR, Stephanie here. So Dana Fielding suggested that she would like to see a video where I go through sort of head to toe how I am outfitted before. This was in particular a 6-hour row game that we did last week, but really with just a few little tweaks, this is probably what I would wear for an adventure race up to say 8 hours, kind of depending on the race and how often I'm going to be going back to the transition area and that sort of thing. But let's start with the top and work our way down. So I've got long hair. These are my pandemic braids, I call them. So I'm putting my hair in braids to get them out of my way. I wear a ball cap mainly because my hair's thin on top and my head will sunburn if I don't have something. And I find that ball caps are also really great for shading my eyes, whether it's raining or super sunny. That little bit of shade helps. The one thing I'll warn you about, if you're doing a whole lot of bushwhacking, well, for one, it can get caught on branches, but I'd rather the hat get caught than my hair. But the other thing that you have to be careful about, if you're doing a lot of bushwhacking and going under things, this really obscures your vision right here. I can't see my hand at all right now, and I have brained myself more than once thinking that I was clearing a tree and I wasn't. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're having to go under a lot of deadfall, I suggest you just flip it around and improve that visibility. So that's the ball cap for me. And then I've got my safety glasses with little built-in magnifiers. These aren't prescription. These are a brand called Vapro, V-A-P-R-O, which are an orienteering specific brand or marketed to orienteers. But I think these were maybe $35. Does that sound about right, Benny? The Vapro?
Maybe 25.
There we go, maybe 25, 35 bucks. And they've lasted a long time. They're pretty scratch resistant, so they've been really good. They've got they feel really light. I'm really sensitive to any kind of weight or pinching on my nose, and these don't do that at all. They don't bother me at all. They also don't fog up bad at all. Benny buys these, $9, $10 safety glasses from Home Depot or Lowe's, and they're actually pretty decent too. They've got the little magnifiers. They're pretty good, but I've noticed that they tend to get scratched up a lot more quickly. And I've also noticed that they fog up a lot worse than these do. So I really like this particular brand. And I just put them on one of the little frog leashes. Is that what they call that? Little leashes there so that I can take them off when I don't need them. Besides enabling me to read fine detail, they're also great protection for your eyes. And so it enables you to move a little bit quicker through brush. Because you're not quite so worried about getting those honeysuckle branches in your eyes. So I've got those on, and then this particular jacket I started the race in last week. I took it off very quickly because it's surprising how fast you warm up once you start moving. But this is a super great little lightweight jacket that packs down to nothing. It's a Brooks brand, which is a running brand, and in fact I bought it at a running store quite a while back. So it's got a nice reflective strip down the back, which is nice for visibility if you don't have a pack over you, or you could put it over your pack. But it's super lightweight. It's practically see-through, but it's going to give you an amazing amount of warmth if you need it. And for as small as it packs down to, and as lightweight as it is, it's super easy to throw in a pack. So working our way down, then I've got my short sleeve wicking top underneath. Nothing spectacular about it. The only thing noteworthy is that it's not cotton. It dries pretty quickly. One of the things to look for in quick drying fabric, steer clear of spandex. Spandex does not dry all that quickly. You want to look for things like nylon, right? Think of pantyhose. Dries out super quickly, and so look for clothing with a high nylon content. I suggest for lightweight, quick drying fabric. And then, of course, when it's colder out, you're going to layer that with wool layers for warmth. So Next up, we've got a watch. This is just a good old-fashioned, you know, Timex, takes a licking and keeps on ticking watch, which is super important. I know so many people these days rely on their phones to tell the time. I'm still a watch wearer all the time, but especially during a race, you need to keep an eye on your time for lots of reasons. Then I've got a wrist compass, which I like to have in addition to, I've got a base plate compass around my neck, so I'm just going to tuck that into my jog bra. But I like having a wrist compass. It's super helpful on the bike and on the paddle when you can't be hands-free. It's nice to be able to check your direction really quickly using a wrist compass. I would also be wearing bike gloves on the paddle, on the trek, on the bike. Always I've got bike gloves on. And contrary to popular opinion, it's not just because I need to protect my manicure. It's because I want to protect my hands. And I'm going to move a lot more quickly. I'm going to avoid blisters on the paddle. I'm going to avoid that neurological issue that people get from mountain biking, numbness in their hands. And even on the trek, I'm going to move a lot faster because I'm able to break branches and get thorns and things out of the way with my hands protected. So I'm always going to be wearing bike gloves. Then pants, long pants, don't care what time of year it is, middle of summer, as hot as it gets, I'm going to be in long pants. And that's not only because of the stickers and that sort of thing that you encounter that are going to cut your legs up, but I'm also super sensitive to seed ticks, chiggers, anything, poison ivy, anything that you can be allergic to on your skin. I tend to have sort of an outsized reaction to those things, so I'm really careful to keep my legs covered. My pants, again, no cotton. These are just very inexpensive, like Columbia brand pants work really nicely for me. These have a little side pocket here, which is handy for storing food. Some people store their passport there. That's perfectly acceptable. Just make sure you keep it zippered up, but a little zippered pocket there is handy. Main thing is I've got long pants on, two different options for socks. So if I know I'm going to be in an area that has a lot of seed ticks or a lot of chiggers, then I'm going to wear my pants tucked into my socks, in which case I've got to have some low socks on so that I can get my pants down in there. And so I'm going with this route, and the reason is seed ticks attach at the bottom and they climb up. So if you've got your socks on under your pants, even if I'm wearing long knee socks like this, where I'm going to find those bites are going to be all around the top of that sock, whether it's chiggers or seed ticks. So if I'm in an area where I know I've encountered that before, then I'm going to be pretty careful about tucking my pants into my socks. And I wear a tight weave of sock as well. These are Zensa, Z-E-N-S-A-H, Zensa socks, and they've got a really nice tight weave. These are not wool. In the winter, I would prefer something like Darn Tough, which are wool socks that have a nice tight weave as well. So that's one option. You know, if it's an area where, as far as I know, there's not an issue with a lot of seed ticks or chiggers or things like that, and especially if I want some extra protection, if I know that it's going to be a lot of greenbrier, thorns, things like that, then, I'm just going to wear a tall sock and my pants down over it. Of course, you've also got the option of Gators. Lots of people wear Gators. I tend not to wear these as much lately just because I've had issues with them rubbing at the top of my leg. If I get it cinched down tight enough that they stay snug, I tend to get rubbing around the top of my calf. So I've kind of gotten away from wearing those, but it's something you can try. Certainly a lot of people do wear those, and they're going to give you some nice protection on the front, which again is as much about moving quickly through the brush, right? You can walk around the brush, that's great protection, but if you want to move quickly through it and be faster, a lot of this protection is about enabling you to move faster. So then I've got my Solomon Speed Cross, and these are I think, kind of the go-to shoe for adventure racers these days. There are tons of other varieties out there, other shoes and brands that are going to be great. The most important thing is find something that's comfortable and that works for you. These have good luggy soles for good traction. They've got the speed laces that tuck up under there. They tend to be kind of narrow, but I have a very wide foot, and they're sort of just wide enough for me. They're just super comfortable. I've worn them for years. So they seem to fit a broad range of foot types because a lot of people are wearing them. So I think that's me head to toe. Oh, so the other thing I'm going to do to protect myself against the biting creatures, so the night before the race, I'm going to have used Permethrin. Can you see that? Yeah. So I'm going to have used Permethrin on my clothes. This does not go on your skin. It's super toxic. And so you put this only on your clothes and your shoes. And the key to this working well is that you need to give it a pretty good coating. So your pants and your socks basically is what I put this on. And they should feel damp after you've applied this. So you put on a pretty good coating, and this lasts through several washes. So put that on the night before the race so that your clothes have time to dry out overnight. And then for my skin, I'm just putting on, again, because I'm like super sensitive and allergic to everything, you know, I use an insect repellent with DEET in it. So, and that of course goes on my skin. So that's clothing wise. And then, so I brought a couple of my boxes up here because Jen Payette also talked about how do you store your gear in between races. So I brought just a few things. I've got my huge gear bin that I'll take to a race. And then within that bin, I've got multiple sort of sub bins to help keep me organized. Nothing brilliant here. I'm sure other people have better systems, but so I've got, for example, this little box is my personal hygiene box, and on the lid, I've written all of the things that go in it. And so every once in a while, I'll do a gear check on myself. I'll check my list against what's actually in the box. And for example, if I looked through my box to make sure all of these things were there right now, I would notice that I don't have any toilet paper in this gear bin. Apparently I've robbed it of toilet paper or ran out at some point. So I would need to resupply that. But these are just the things that I've sort of figured out over the years when I've gotten to races and wished I had this or that. I add it to my little list. It goes in the box, and then I know I've got it next time. So that's my little personal hygiene box. I've also got, for instance, this little divider box is pretty handy. This is my first aid box, and these you find in the hardware store. This one is adjustable the way you can do the little dividers inside, so that's kind of handy. So again, I've just sort of over the years found things that I wish I had, or when I've taken a wilderness first aid class with David Pfeiffer and his Red Med crew, he talked to us about things that he suggested you have in your first aid box. So, you know, you can go to professionals, go to, you know, the Red Cross website and look for what they're recommending. Obviously, if your race director has a mandatory first aid kit, you need all of those things, but there's a lot more stuff you need to be comfortable in AR than you'll find on a gear list. So then I've also got the same little box for my safety and utility gear. So these are all the things like my, you know, chem lights, water treatment. I've got some spare headlamps. I've got zip ties and a whistle and a safety mirror, nail clippers, a bear bell. Thank goodness I've never needed the bear bell. You know, just different little random things like that. A little bivy sack, a corkscrew for the post race. Okay, so there's my little utility gear bin that again goes in my major bin. So my pack that I'm going to wear, and this is the pack I wore for the 6-hour Rogaine last week, And again, this would serve me pretty well up to, I would say, about an 8-hour race. Now, one thing I don't have in here that I would have to have for my 8-hour race is a first aid kit. I've got just a few Band-Aids and some alcohol wipes is all I've got in here right now. So I would have to figure out a way to get my first aid gear in here, or if I'm doing the Unbridled race and have 2 teammates, maybe one of my teammates will be happy to carry a first aid kit for the team. So this is a little Nathan pack, and it's really designed for running, for runners. But it's a really great size. It's got a 2-liter bladder in the back, which I'll show you in just a minute. Hose comes down right there. You want to be super careful, and Jen will tell you this, to make sure you don't have a pack that has a magnet for your hydration hose, your bladder hose, because a magnet can mess with your compass. So that's it. Definitely you want a bladder or bottles, some way that you can drink easily so that you stay hydrated. This one has some nice little pockets. So in my pockets, I've got my food, of course. I've got a Sharpie marker in case I need to make notes on my map or make a correction maybe. If it's a race where I'm having to plot, where I have had to plot my own points, either in the transition area or obviously if you're out on the course, you're going to have to take a plotter. But even if I plotted my points in the transition area before I left, I'm going to take a spare plotter with me, because if I get out on the course and realize I'm not finding the point where I expected it to be, then one of the questions I'm going to have is, did I misplot the point on my map? So it'll be super handy, especially if you've got a little tiny one. Like that's a little tiny 1 to 24,000 plotter. So that's super simple for a race on a 1 to 24,000 map where I plotted. I would take that with me as well. If you didn't take a plotter, you can always recreate it. It's just a scale, right? So you use the scale on your map and you can do that. But if you've got one, then that's quick and handy. So that's what I've got in my little zippered pocket there. Over here in my other pocket, I've just got some more bars. Something that I'll always want to eat no matter how bad I'm feeling. I've got some little ginger chews down in there and a couple of peppermints, because those are really great for ginger chews for settling your stomach, peppermints for kind of perking you up when you're getting tired. And then in the front pocket, I've got my jacket, which I just put in there. I've got another bar. I've got my little Toiletries Kit. It's just a Ziploc bag to put my spent toilet paper. I've got some little Kleenexes and some wet wipes in there. I've got a chapstick, which is useful in all kinds of places. Make sure you lube before the race, and you may not need the chapstick so much. And then inside my main compartment, I'm going to have a little buff, which is super multifunctional. And again, if it gets unexpectedly have a cold front come through, that can keep you warm in a lot of places. I'm going to have a little tiny headlamp for a race where I'm really not expecting to be out after dark. I'm still probably going to have just a little headlamp, sort of just in case, you know, especially, well, obviously if it's on your mandatory gear list, but even if it's not, it's surprising how dark it can be sometimes in a canopy. And, you know, if it's stormy out, if you've got dark skies and you're in a tree canopy, it can be kind of difficult for me to read my map. So even in the middle of the day, you could find yourself happy that you've got a little headlamp. And that's just a little, takes 2 little AAA batteries, weighs next to nothing. Then I'm going to have my little waterproof pouch. Inside my little waterproof pouch, I've got some money, I've got a space blanket, I've got those alcohol wipes and a couple of Band-Aids, I've got the 2 batteries for my headlamp. I'm going to store those separate from my headlamp, both to preserve the battery life and to keep the headlamp from corroding on the terminals, but as importantly, to make sure that I don't inadvertently turn my headlamp on while it's inside my pack and run the batteries down while I'm running around the woods. I've got my lighter, I've got a cell phone, which is probably the most important piece of safety gear you can carry these days. Make sure it's charged. I'm gonna put that in airplane mode during the day just to preserve the battery in case I do end up needing it for an emergency later in the day. And then I've also got my health insurance card. Some people carry a copy of their photo ID. You can do that too. I figure my health insurance card has my name on it, and if I end up in an emergency, I might be glad that I had that with me. So that's that little pack. I've got a spare pair of socks, which I'm always going to have, and then I've just got my 2-liter bladder full of water. So that is the contents of my pack for, that's actually a little heavier than I carried during the row game last week. I'll admit I did not carry a cell phone, and I actually didn't carry the headlamp either for the row game last week. But certainly for an adventure race I would. Then the other thing you might have noticed on the front of my pack, I've got clipped on here this little thing. It's a little badge reel, and this is one that is given out by Dino Series when they have their mission adventure race. This is a little piece of swag you get. If you haven't done the mission, you can go buy a little badge reel at any office supply store, and that's what this is. It's still got tape on it from my race last weekend, but I'll take that off. So what I use this for is to hold my passport. So let's get into my little nav box here. So let's assume that here's the passport I've been given by the race director at the start of the race. I'm going to take my handy dandy little hole punch, and I'm going to go down to a part of the passport that is not for me to punch checkpoints. I'm going to punch a couple of holes in that so that my badge reel clips right through there. And then, because I don't necessarily trust that clip with my passport, which is so vital at the end of my race, I'm going to take a little piece of duct tape. I'm just going to go right around that little badge reel snap, and then I'm going to clip that on the front of my pack, and now when I get to a control, I'm ready to punch it. Because this is a Tyvek passport, I'm not too worried about it ripping. My teammate Sarah Dahlman would still tape this, and certainly if it were cardboard or paper, what we would do is after we had hole punched it, we would just sort of back that up with some duct tape around that hole just to keep it from being ripped off somehow. And that's what we're going to put on the front of our pack to be able to access our passport and make sure that we keep up with it. Lastly, once I get my maps are going to go into my waterproof map case. Once I've finished marking them up and wheeling out my distances and all the things I want to do to them, I'm going to put them in my map case. My preferred map case, after trying many different systems over the years, is Locksack. And so it's Locksack, L-O-K-S-A-K. And Locksack is a system. You'll see that the main compartment, it just zips closed, right? That's not a waterproof zipper. It's much too easy, which is part of the reason I love this system. I find that the Ziploc systems sometimes don't seal very well. I find that the Velcro and roll top sort of give out quickly, and also can be difficult to kind of fumble with, especially when your hands are cold. So this is super easy to open and close. And then because that's not waterproof, you need to put your maps in a plastic sleeve before they go into the main Locksack. And now Locksack sells their own little specialty sleeves here, and these are just Ziplocs. And so, you know, this one came with the map case. Once that one's worn out, you can use those several times, but once they wear out, you just get a Ziploc bag or a plastic sleeve. And if I've got a couple of maps, right, I can put those back to back, and then they're going to go in my plastic sleeve. I'm going to put some packing tape, clear packing tape over that to seal that up. So now this is waterproof. It goes down into my Locksack map case. And what's really nice about that is now if I've got my course instructions or my clue sheet or something like that, I can put them in their own little waterproof case. They're going to go down in there too. And so now every time I need to get my map out and refold it or fumble with my map, I'm not getting all of my other stuff wet. So that's what I really like about this system. The one downside to it, as you can see, it's not clear on both sides. So you've only got this front side and you've got to flip more. But you know, it's a trade-off. Every map case has its trade-offs, and this is the one that I've grown to appreciate over the years. So I think that's it. But feel free to post questions, comments. I know everyone has her favorite pair of pants, her favorite kind of socks, whatever. We'll be happy to field questions and comments both. And happy adventures.